More foundational.
But I'm saying, So,
Yeah.
but my belief, I don't believe in God in the first place. Then, if I was to be invited into Islam, my problem would be firstly with the Quran, and then secondly with the Hadiths.
Okay. But all that's built on the foundation of whether or not God exists.
Yeah.
Because if God doesn't exist, then
then it doesn't matter. Let's say I'm an atheist and I'm being like given dawah.
You are an atheist.
Yeah. But let's say like.
Would you say you're a hard atheist or you're an agnostic atheist?
I'm like questioning. But for me, it's like in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the definition of atheism has become something that's not exactly negating theism, is that it doesn't matter. Is that it's not necessarily you're anti-theist, although the word atheist presupposes that. It's the idea that you don't believe that it's necessity. So you don't believe it's value.
So even if it exists, it's not valuable?
Yeah, that's it, basically.
Even if it exists, it's not valuable?
That's the definition
of
atheism.
Really?
So if it's that, it's not necessarily connected to what's going on now.
Really? Is that what they say? That's interesting. I've never heard
It's a new one, yeah.
What's the difference between deist and an atheist?
Theist is someone that
Deist.
Deist.
Because deists are people who believe that God exists, but non-intervening doesn't matter.
Yeah. So it's going more towards deism, but in the sense that it's the definition is meaningless. So the idea of God is meaningless. It's the very existence of Him has no meaning to us now. With deism, it's more kind of like it does have a meaning.
So how did you arrive? Do you accept? Is that your position? I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's irrelevant whether God exists or not.
Yeah.
How did you arrive at that conclusion?
By thinking, by rationalizing it.
Take me through your thought process.
So
what I'm saying is make the case for that position.
Make the case for that position. Yeah. I mean, for me, I've not had any convincing evidence for myself that God exists, and that's not been proposed to me. That's not been argued to me in a way that works well in my mind. And then subsequently, I go to philosophy to tend to questions of morality, of metaphysics, of the same questions that religion answers, but without there being a God. Because the only difference between religion and philosophy is that God exists. Religion is a form of philosophy, in a way.
So, I don't agree with
Islam is the cult of Shaitan, the devil. Islam is the cult of Shaitan.
So what I would suggest is, if you, I have to gather my thoughts now. It's like a tsunami just went. So.
How's that warm? It's good, isn't it?
It's good.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah. So
totally the other hand, so you can both that hand.
Thank you.
We want you to be comfortable, so we have a long discussion.
Yeah,
because the problem I have is with this, because the thing that you said was that it doesn't matter whether there is a God or not. Now, one of the problems I have with that is that how do you answer those fundamental questions? And you said you can turn to philosophy, but there's already an assumption about you as an entity.
In the name of Allah.
That you're a being that has rational thoughts.
Thank you very much, boss.
All of these things are presupposed.
Yeah.
In that, and I would say that if you don't believe that God exists, the alternative is to find a natural explanation for you.
What an idiot! What an idiot!
So are you a naturalist?
In a sense, yeah. In a sense, yeah. I mean, yeah, I am. But it's just like I don't. When I think, about philosophy, I don't really ponder these questions. So naturalism, I think it's a more effective explanation for reality. But I also, in the sense that my definition of atheism that it's meaningless is that when I think about myself, I don't connect it to the beginning of the universe.
I understand.
So I don't connect it to where the arguments from God would come from.
But this is the thing that I'm saying. So in being somebody who answers the big questions of life that are coming to you, morality, etc., from philosophy, that presupposes that you are a being that has inherent qualities.
Yeah, consciousness,
that you have the ability to be rational.
Yep.
Determine truth, and so that in itself is something that would require some sort of basis for you to assume these things.
Yeah, of course.
So, as a naturalist, then, if you don't accept the existence of the supernatural,
Yeah.
what are your explanations for? Even because you have to, if I'm going to stand on a foundation and then say, look, I can use my thoughts to come to truth and to come to an understanding of these big questions, the life and why we're here, purpose, etc., meaning, value, all of these things. The point here is on what basis are you saying that you can do that? How can you rely on those faculties to be sufficient to explain? Explain is the wrong term. To be sufficient to be able to give you confidence in your ability to arrive at the correct.
Move away from the cameras,
I think there's a difference then. So it's I have these qualities now, but you're asking me where I got these qualities, or
I agree that you have these qualities.
yeah,
No problem. I don't say that you don't have them. What I'm asking you is your explanation for these qualities.
why they came about.
How you have them from a naturalist paradigm.
Obviously, I mean, I would argue evolution.
How does that answer the question?
I mean, in the sense that we evolved from initially chimpanzees, we came from them, and a lot of people don't know enough about the brain
Enough.
to explain consciousness, to explain what is consciousness. I don't know. Neuroscientists, they still don't know. But this is where the question of leap of faith comes in, because then it's about having a question mark about the question.
So you do have leaps of faith then?
Yeah, we do.
So just to clarify,
I'm saying with consciousness, we don't know where consciousness comes from, and I don't know.
Can something that doesn't have a quality give rise to this equality?
What do you mean?
Can something that's not sweet give rise to something that is sweet?
No.
So can matter and energy that doesn't possess consciousness give rise to consciousness?
We don't know. We don't know exactly where consciousness
You
comes
knew about
from.
the sugar very quickly.
Yeah. Sugar's a very different question.
But the question...
Sugar's I know the question.
The principle is quite straightforward.
Yeah. But
Something that doesn't possess the quality, I would say even the potential, can it then give rise to that thing?
these things can arise over time. Our world didn't come about in one day.
Of course, we believe that. We accept that.
And this is the same thing with humans.
So therefore you're saying that something that doesn't possess a quality can give rise to that quality as long as you have time.
Time. Yeah. I would say so.
You would say so, yeah?
So something that doesn't have sweetness can give rise to
Sweetness.
But sweetness is a different discussion. Sweetness is a lot more. It's a lot less complicated than consciousness.
I understand, but we're applying a principle.
No, yeah, we're applying a principle, but using it not in the same way as it. Like, we don't know where consciousness comes from. We don't know.
Would you say consciousness is a lot more complex than sugar molecules?
Exactly.
Do you see my point?
I see your point.
So what I'm saying is that when we feel something incredibly simple cannot give rise to something if it doesn't possess the qualities, yet what you're arguing is that something that is far more complex than the sweetness can actually be given, come out of something that doesn't possess that quality.
In the long run, yeah. But that's why I said the factor of time.
So if that were the case, why would we then call it the hard problem of consciousness? Because it's precisely because they know that it can't come about that way is why they call it a hard problem of consciousness. Otherwise it would be, well, yeah, of course consciousness can come about by just, if you give it long enough, these things happen and hey presto, you've got consciousness.
Yeah.
But the reality is the experts in neuroscience are saying, actually, you know what?
We don't know.
It can't. That's the hard problem of consciousness. You see my point?
Yeah.
So now when we say leap of faith, I would say there's a much greater leap of faith that it somehow just came about than actually the thing that brought it about must have possessed that quality. I'd say there's less leap of faith to believe that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
So now the question arises, to remain consistent and go with wherever the evidence takes you on balance of probability, it would make more rational and reasonable sense accept the notion that this thing, consciousness, came from something that possessed that quality.
And it couldn't have risen.
On probability, it is far more likely. Please, guys, please. Do you mind? Have some manners.
Yeah, have some
Be
manners.
a good Christian.
Why are you shouting like that?
Be a good Christian.
Have some manners.
Be-
Be a good Muslim also.
please.
Be a good Muslim, yeah.
So I would say
Have some manners.
to remain consistent.
Bullshit! You have no manners!
Have some manners.
You're liar!
He's telling have some manners.
This is the Christianity today. Look, this is how the Christians
He's
behave
telling
here.
you to have some manners. You're not having
This is how the
manners.
Christians behave. So what I would say is that if
I'm not saying anything.
one wants to remain consistent and fair, looking at consciousness coming from nothing or coming from something that possessed consciousness,
Human being, not a sword.
that if one is truthful, one would have to say, look, regardless of whether I believe in God or don't believe in God,